This is Trinity 63, Episode 2, Breaking Bread. This is probably the most sitcom-y of all the episodes that we do. It's got a stuck in a plot line, stuck in a trunk. It's also got I think the trope is called the two-timing date, where like someone has to bounce back and forth between a couple tables without anyone knowing that they're there. Mrs. Doubtfire had that as their big final scene where you had to bounce back and forth. We kind of turned that trope on its head a little bit, and it was, rather than one guy trying to keep both parties unaware of his existence, it was two parties trying to keep a third party unaware of each other's existence, or trying to keep the other person unaware of the third party's existence. It was, I don't know, it was our own little take on it, but it was a fun episode. There's a lot of physical comedy in this episode, or just in the show in general. It was actually, I was inspired a lot in the writing of the show with all the physical comedy. There was a show in the 80s and the 90s called Perfect Strangers, which is about just, I don't know, it doesn't matter what it's about, but it was just like all this physical comedy, just really amazing slapstick, and I was like, oh, I definitely want to include that in here. And you'll see in the documentary, we were very fortunate that we ended up getting a professor from Emerson to do our stunt coordination, which was, I remember thinking, like, I'm going to have to plan out all these stunts and figure out how to do it, but we somehow lucked into a guy who was like, oh, no, I know how to do this for the stage, so I'll just do that for the actors while you can concentrate on, directing the cameras and all that.
I suppose with the 3 seconds of airtime I got, you would think so. And you, my dear, were fantastic.
Why, thank you, darling. Good enough to raise $500,000?
Let's hope.
So the inspirations for Graham and Kirsten were very kind of loosely based on, well, me and the girl that I had the crush on in high school. And then basically writing this show kind of wound up being, therapy over the one that got away. It ended up getting a little bit weird later on when Giovanni and Rachel actually started dating in real life, because, over the course of shooting, they developed a crush on each other, and it was weird kind of seeing the me character and the her character actually getting together in real life, but it wasn't me. So I think the therapy kind of backfired on me.
Unless you have other plans.
No. Dinner would be
good.
Good.
Great.
Fantastic.
I told you, like, the inspiration for Sid, or not the inspiration, but just like, I always pictured Sid as like this kind of short, squashy, sarcastic guy. And Corey came in and just brought this effortless malaise and just over it attitude to Sid, which really plays out well.
Okay, have fun, tough guy.
Fine. Okay, I'm scared. I'm petrified. Are you happy?
I'm ecstatic.
Great. I'll owe you one.
It wouldn't kill you to help me.
Yep.
The inspiration for Floyd really kind of shows a lot in this scene, just where he's just like, yep, nope. There's a guy that we knew in college who just would be like, hey, Mike, had a little vodka? Yep. You doing all right? Yep. He used to get you anything? Nope. So Floyd was born, and it was kind of funny when we were doing the read-through. They, Colin, who plays Floyd, came in and was like, just realizing he doesn't have a whole lot to say. And I'm like, just don't worry about it. A lot of your acting is going to be physical and reacting off of other people. And he really does it well. But I remember the first read through, he's like, what did I even get myself into? I'm not doing anything in this show.
He knows exactly what he's doing, okay?
Good. Now, he'll plan driver's lesson 3 days if he doesn't get to everything. Gloria!
You really kind of lucked out that Val did have such long hair, because she really was the best person to audition for that scene. Like I said, I had written it for somebody who also had really long hair, but like I said, she got kicked out of school, so.
Gloria! Somebody! This place is nice.
Yeah, nothing special.
So here we are in lovely Rita's, the restaurant scene. The exterior of that is actually a restaurant in Beacon Hill called 75 Chestnut, which apparently is still in business. We shot this in 1998, and it's still there.
Oops, bad luck. Well, we'll see you tomorrow night at 9 o'clock there. Thank you for calling. Have a good night. Hi, welcome to Lovely Rita's. How can I help you tonight?
I remember when I was writing this series, I was getting really into the Rolling Stones at the time, and so my original plan for the name of this restaurant was called Ruby Tuesdays, because I didn't know that there was already a chain called Ruby Tuesdays, and fortunately, somebody who knew better was like, you cannot have Graham bring Kirsten to Ruby frickin' Tuesdays. So We went with the Beatles reference instead.
Okay.
Yeah, just signaling the waiter.
I don't know why we hung the sign up crooked. I guess we thought we were being cool, but I hate it, and I've always hated it ever since. So, whatever.
Not fried, right?
Yes, ma'am. Anything to drink?
Why don't you push the blind, please?
Okay. And for you, sir?
I'll have the number 4, please.
I also don't understand why Graham took her to a place where the orders are numbered. Instead of like, I will have the grilled chicken or whatever, I will have the number 7. I was 20 when I wrote this. I didn't know any better. So the exteriors of Trinity 63 are actually from WLBZ TV, the local NBC affiliate in Bangor, Maine, where I spent a summer running camera and whatnot. And actually, as I kind of think about the interior of the station, I kind of like always, when I was picturing like people running around, like you'll notice like if someone's going to the studio from the production room, they always go left. If someone's going to the sanctuary from the production room, they always go right. So I was definitely imagining which way, how the station was laid out, and I definitely kind of pictured the inside of WLBZ as I was plotting out, what the inside of this place looked like.
Yeah, I guess I could take a break.
No, really, that's not necessary.
Yes, this is the infamous sardine scene, which we talk about in the documentary.
Sardine?
No, thanks.
Packed these myself.
I really kind of thought Jason, when he did this, was just going to eat like 1 or 2, but he just went for
I got
it.
a factory. Charlie hooks me up with a bunch. You don't truly appreciate a good sardine unless you pack it yourself.
We really did create a scene, a rule too, like when we were shooting the scene that, if anybody messes up and he has to eat sardines twice, someone else, whoever screwed up is going to eat the sardine too. And we definitely put that into a lot, like whenever we had a set falling down moment, it was like, all right, once the set falls over, don't screw up. You can screw up anytime before the set falls over, but once it falls over, if you screw up, you eat a sardine. I don't think we ever actually had to make good on that. I don't think anyone ever ate a sardine except for Jason.
Fire Floyd! Don't you test me! Floyd!
The Floyd Gloria thing was not in the original script either. I knew that I needed Gloria to be kind of pestering people and bugging people, but I always had this thing that she was going to develop a crush on Sid. And, but Sid ended up being kind of too busy with like the other plot lines. And when you think about it, Floyd is the most antithetical character to not just Gloria, but everyone in this show. So we ended up putting them together.
Look, if I can get it through to Colin, I'm sure we can make some improvements, maybe even double our programming. And you're here now, and well, you're...
I'm what?
In the background,
As a host, I mean.
cast as the restaurant smoker, is the one and only and inimitable Terry Chang.
Can I have one of those, please?
I had to tell him in the scene, do not overact, do not draw attention to yourself. So that little tap on the cigarette pack was like his one kind of moment to shine.
Well, yeah, it's something I picked up.
Restaurant set was like our biggest set in this whole thing. It's a long set with like, foreground stuff, which it was exactly what we were trying to get away from after doing The Biz, because like all these long sets just kind of were a pain. But once again, there's no doors that we had to deal with, and when we first set it up, actually, it was just those brick flats behind them with tables, and we're like, this is a very bare, kind of austere-looking restaurant. We cannot have Graham bring somebody here. So we just basically told everyone, please go home, bring in anything you can think of that we can stick on the walls, and they came through. The cast and the crew came through.
Okay, so far so good. Damn it!
TGI Fridays was at the height of its popularity at this time, when their whole shtick was like random stuff on walls, so this restaurant fit right in.
Pathetic. She's the same girl she was 10 years ago. Go back there, enjoy yourself.
I guess you could call Lovely Rita's decor dorm room chic, including the twin bed sheet that's the tablecloth on that table. My twin bed, as it turns out.
Sorry, I had to make use of them. Yeah.
You look like you needed another.
Graham's Jim Beam is actually Crystal Light iced tea.
Oh, jeez.
Are you okay?
We couldn't do ice cubes because they would melt, because everything took forever to shoot. So apparently Graham drinks his whiskey neat.
Floyd, I don't see anything on here about lights.
Once we decided that, okay, Gloria and Floyd are going to end up together, we're like, all right, what's gonna be the thing that turns her from antagonizing him to having a crush on him? And we're like, we had this whole plot line of like, oh, maybe she is really trying to like learn how to run cameras, and she makes Floyd teach her. And then I had this scene where like he puts his hand on top of hers to show her how to run the camera, and that's what makes her, oh, I'm in love with him. And we realized it was kind of dumb. So I don't know if this is necessarily much better, but we feel like, all right, let's have Gloria fall, and he catches her.
Thank you. Thank you, Floyd.
It was as good a sitcom plot device as any, I guess.
So help me. If this list isn't done by the end of tonight, you will have more to deal with than just a burnt finger. Oh!
Colin talks about in the documentary about how after the first weekend his arms were very sore because he had to pick up Beth and he had to pick up Val. And all through the show, he's picking up Janitor Bob and just picking people up.
Or you'll have to deal with me.
You shake my nerves and you rattle my brain.
So this whole episode and this scene in particular, when I was writing the show, I wanted to kind of try out all the kind of sitcom tropes that were popular in the 80s and 90s, which I had grown up on. And so this scene in particular is just, supposed to be my version of those scenes where somebody's bouncing back and forth between this room and that room and going to see this person, trying to keep this person a secret from that person, and that person trying to keep a secret from this person, and it's all happening really fast. And in this case, like I said, it's both everyone trying to keep Sid a secret from the other one.
Right. Vibrator, see?
This was 1998, so pagers were like all the thing. Cell phones, you only had a cell phone if you were like thought very highly of yourself.
Can I use phone, please? I'm sorry, sir. If you could just read our sign.
This whole sequence with like Graham and the host was like one of the scenes that kind of really played out a lot funnier than how it was written, because they were pretty straightforward scenes, and the jokes were in there, but Graham and Chris just kind of started riffing as they were doing this, and like they kind of brought out some really, I think probably like some of the funniest exchanges in the whole episode between the two of them.
And if Lover Rita gets mad that you're using the phone, then there's going to be trouble, and it's going to come back on my head. And you don't want it to come back on my head, because it's going to come back on your head.
I like their dumb handwritten sign on the thing.
Feels good. Hold me, baby.
I don't know if it ever came through, but that was Graham paging Sid to come to the front of the thing.
Sid?
What? No.
What are you doing here?
Eating. Eating.
Sit down for a second.
Well, I really should be getting back. How are you?
You here alone?
Yes, that's right. Just me and myself. You?
I love how gangly Corey is. He without even really trying, he kind of makes his just lanky body like work for comedy. Like I think originally in that scene it was like him going, "Oh yeah, just me and myself. How about you?" But we ended up saying like, "Hey, you should knock your knee on the thing."
He's cute.
If we were paying for music in this show, I think this episode in particular would have cost $1 billion. All the golden oldies.
I think that standing around all day must get really hard on your feet.
He's not a very nice man, Graham.
Is yours? Give me that.
Stealing the guy's chapstick.
Now, when you say mentioned, do you mean has your name ever come up?
Has he ever talked about me? About the way he feels about me?
No. Well, wait, not not directly.
So yes?
Well, what do you think?
It was never fully clear in the show. Like I think in the way the script was written, it was more clear that Graham and Kirsten were never actually boyfriend and girlfriend in high school. They kind of just kept missing each other and like had crushes on each other, but never actually got together. And they each always kind of like clearly regretted that. And this was supposed to be like, oh, they finally get together. But I feel like literally every single line that was written that involved them saying, no, they were never actually together kind of got bungled and we never caught it. And so like, it kind of seems like they'd actually dated in high school, which was never the original plan.
And if things get too awkward, you come over. Oh God, here he comes. Get at the table, quick.
Since this is sitcom logic, it makes far more sense for her to just shove Sid under the table and be like, oh, no one will ever know.
Is everything okay?
Okay. Are you okay?
No. Didn't the studio page?
Oh, right. False alarm.
Oh, great.
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 I do kind of like this though, because it's like the first moment where like Kirsten's character kind of breaks that strong forward, I can handle any man attitude where she's kind of like, she's actually nervous and wondering what's going on.
Then all I do is follow Broom around all day. But they don't realize all that goes into it. Have you ever seen what salmonella looks like?
Giant Bob really was intended to be just a minor character at first. I think, honestly, I wrote him because I needed just an extra person for this scene. And I think throughout the entire process, I never really thought of him as any more than just a minor character. But then Jason came into it and, like, just added his own amazing shtick to it. And, like, it's he really kind of became, like, an integral part of the cast.
Back condition and listen to you spout your little stories. Now go. Get me a cushion, a blanket, a jacket, anything.
Okay.
I love that sound effect of the ear twist. That was one of the most, I think that was the most fun we had when we were editing, is just all the sound effects, all the punches and falls and thuds. And I think that sound effect for Bob's ear twisting was called a rope stretch or something like
I
that.
get angry for 2 seconds and he decides to hold a vendetta.
You think you're gonna pry open the trunk with that little thing?
Aren't you gonna help her?
Believe it or not, we actually had trouble figuring out, like, how do we end this storyline? How do we get her out of this trunk in a way that's funny? I forget, like, we had a couple ideas. We tried a couple things at the beginning of, I think, Colin and Sarah were singing to her and she got herself out or something like that. And at the end, we decided, you know what, it's funnier just to realize that Floyd could have fixed this problem at any time he wanted.
Have you even tried anything else?
Have you?
As a matter of fact, I have.
Terrific. I guess we should just break everything around here.
Well,
In fact, why wait?
That's just great. You're not even trying to be reasonable. If we're up to you, we'd all just chop our hair off. Fine, if that's how it has to be.
God,
what are you
guys,
doing?
cut it out.
Now look what you started.
Shut up, Bob. Sarah, Colin, hey. I just want to look at make sure he doesn't get infected.
I'm reasonably certain there was no acting on the part of Val at that part. I think Colin kicked the trunk a little bit harder than he was actually expecting to.
If you need to open it, use this. But keep her away from me. Bob, I need you in the studio.
Actually, I'm supposed to be cleaning up in here.
Bob, now!
Make sure to take care of it, Lloyd.
Can I borrow those things? Lloyd!
So, awkward silences, huh?
This whole thing with Sid under the table really is one of my favorite gags of the whole show. And again, it was one of those things that wasn't originally written. Like the way we had, like we always kind of had this thing like, oh, he's going to be under the table because, again, it's sitcom-y. But I think the problem is like he's just under there. They're talking around about how they don't, about like they're not just coming out and saying that they like each other. They're talking around it. He's getting frustrated down there. And then Graham, not knowing that Sid is under there, kind of keeps making backhanded comments about Sid until finally Sid gets annoyed and says like, listen, you like him, you like her, just get together. And it was dumb. We didn't like it. And so I believe the footsie thing was Jacinta's idea. And this episode actually got nominated for an Evie for directing. And this is the scene that they actually showed at the nomination ceremony. And the whole, it was one of those moments where I'm like, oh, okay, this is actually going to be this is going to work. This is going to be funny because the whole audience who had no connection to the show was laughing at him making her play footsies. I'm like, all right, this is going to be fun.
Sid, what the hell are you doing?
What happened here?
Can we just please have the check?
Word.
I like that he gives him a wedgie as he takes him out of there.
Are you okay?
So everything that was in the restaurant was shot on our final weekend in studio. I believe on like Friday night and Saturday. And so it was like the third weekend. We're all exhausted. It's like, like the novelty is kind of worn off because we've spent like 3 weekends with 18-hour days in studios. And by this weekend, like everyone was just like lethargic. I think like Rachel in particular just like could not get her energy up. And like we just kind of like, the scenes just kind of like falling flat. It's like, and then we're also having camera problems and shading problems. The cameras are too bright. It's taking us time to fix them. So they're just sitting there. Their energy level is getting lower and lower and lower. So like you'll see like all the kind of the random them playing between scenes is just that. It's just like Giovanni trying to keep energy up and try to keep everyone in good spirits and trying to keep Rachel's energy up. And it all ended up working out because I feel like these scenes ended up being some of the best in the show. So thanks for watching. This was episode 2, Trinity 63, episode 2, Breaking Bread. We'll see you back for episode 3. Goose.